Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with amazing humans about their journeys with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Amy Corey to the conversation. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. And it's wonderful because it's another international conversation that we're having today. Amy's out in Tennessee at the moment. Is that right? Tennessee?
Yep, Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. There we go. So it's great to connect, and the beauty of this forum, obviously, and Zoom and everything else. As I always do, just a brief introduction, how we got to this conversation, and then I'll come to you, Amy, and I'll ask you to do your proper introduction, if that's okay. So how did we get introduced? Well, Amy is a fellow TEDx talker, so it's lovely. Reached out to me through LinkedIn and started sort of talking a little bit about some of the work that she's doing, a passion for mental health as well, which just shines through, which is fantastic and amazing. And then there was an opportunity for us to sit down and record this episode of the podcast. So you know what, I'm never going to turn down somebody who is a TEDx talker, B, an amazing human, C is also into mental health just like me. So amazing stuff is going to happen in this conversation. Amy, welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'm just so excited. It's an amazing platform, and TEDx as well. And so I'm just happy. I'm so excited. My name is Amy Minhang Corey. I was born, talking about international, I was born in Da Nang, Vietnam, and was adopted to the United States when I was only 6 months old. So I was just a baby, and I grew up in Oregon, which is on the west side of the United States.
Right.
And I grew up there until I was 18 years old. And 3 months after high school, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee to start my whole career, originally as just a singer and a songwriter. And I was 19 when I signed my artist development deal with a Grammy-nominated producer, and kind of was always talking about mental health because I am only 24 now, but my mental health traumas started when I was around 8 or 9.
Wow.
And I was within that trauma of self-harm and bullying and attempted suicide and depression, eating disorders. My parents were divorcing. My mom was diagnosed with cancer and unfortunately passed away years later. And then just so much was happening from when I was about 8, 9. And then I kind of went through that for 6, 7 years until I was around 15 years old. And that's when I actually went into recovery. And so I've been in recovery for over 8 years now. So it's kind of been a really long journey just in a very short amount of time, which has gained that passion and like understanding, because I was able to go through mental health and recover in mental health as you kind of physically develop as a human. And so it worked in my mindset, just like growth did. So I was growing physically while growing mentally. And it's kind of just been a really odd sense of me just understanding it as life. And that in the end, life doesn't get better, you just do. And so kind of getting to where I am now, it's kind of that master kind of icon on, I just know myself so well. But when I was younger, going through that, it was just an odd time for someone so young to be having these such dangerous and dark thoughts. My self-harm was definitely, addicted to cutting. And it was that mixture of both, not feeling enough and also feeling too much. And then became an addiction and a habit, which a lot of people still, I feel like, can misunderstand self-harm about, is that I was fine for about 4 years. I was getting better. I was depressed. It just became a habit, became my coping mechanism. And so that was a big part in, becoming sober and into recovery, is having to become sober in that as well as everything else. And then keeping that recovery, at 18 and 19 years old, when I was in the music industry, when my team very much knew that, everything I went through, supported me and everything. But because I was in the music industry, if I ate a salad the entire day, no one really said anything that was bad, that was not right. They kind of just went with it and found me being very easy to work with because I was so already like self disciplined. And so I kind of had to really just find out who I was, and to, allow help, but also make sure that in the end, first and foremost, I was always helping myself. And that kind of led me on to the journey of just mastering the mindset, and also knowing that in the end, it's always going to be up to me. And that in the darkness, there's always light within myself, and that light can shine to the outer world, and that it's always going to be in me. Even if I can't see it, it's always just there. And so it's been a really, really crazy journey.
Yeah.
Lots of ups and downs, but in the end, it one gave me the passion to just not only just continue loving myself, but also loving life and loving the growth, and understanding that both good things and bad happen in life, and that is what we are here in this life to do. And so it's been a crazy journey, and I've been able to just meet unbelievable people, including you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's really kind. Thank you. Yeah.
And it's just amazing to now see so many people who are telling their own stories, remembering a time when, I was judged and, looked so down upon when I was younger. But now it, not only being one of the biggest lights in my career, but it being so well known and celebrated in a sense now. I not only has seen it change so much, but been so happy with the way that it's changed. And so it's just an honor to speak. It's an honor to speak on your platform. And there's so many stories within the actual big story that I'm happy to share. But that's kind of the whole big journey kind of put together in just a little bit of amount of time.
Yeah, well, you know what? We have 30 minutes normally to tell the journey.
I know,
We've done it
yeah.
in 7. So no, it's incredible though, Amy, that at your age, and I don't want to use age as a differentiation, but it is so incredible to hear how aware you are of all those things that have happened, and how you've taken those and you've used those to sort of craft yourself into where you are now and what you do. And I just find that fascinating. And I know, I think it's so incredible that you can verbalize and use words around all of that. So I do want to delve a bit deeper into some of those, if you're okay to, of course.
Absolutely.
It would only ever be an invitation. But so at that very young age, those moments. So what was going on? Can you reconnect to some of those sort of thoughts about what was really happening around you at the time? You talked a bit about bullying and some other elements, but were they happening at that age? Is that where that was coming from?
Yeah. So I always look back, and I've done a lot of therapy to try to, a lot of times people think there's that one thing that really pushed you over the edge.
Sure.
And I think at the time it was everything. There was no safe place. School wasn't safe. Like middle school is a brutal time for anyone. Everyone's developing, everyone's figuring out what's right and wrong. And there's always, unfortunately, people who are the second victim of someone victimizing themselves first.
Right.
And it's such a child's way of, in a sense, like I said, knowing what's right and wrong. And I fell to the bullying, to the cyberbullying was the main type of bullying at that time, when Facebook just developed and MySpace was really big. And so there was a lot of bullying within school. To then I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe where I was. I didn't really know who I was. And I was listening to all the hate and the negativity to kind of make myself into that person. And then coming home with my mom being sick and my parents divorcing, and everyone was kind of having to fend for themselves in a sense of safety, it just didn't feel safe anywhere. And so the class wasn't, overflown. It's always been overflowing. It was just pouring out water the entire time. And I think eventually, like anything, it just is so much flowing. You just need a big rock to just empty it all. And that's kind of, in a sense, what happened, is that the bullying just got so bad to where no one was validating what was really who I was, that I was okay, that I was safe. It just was a ton of negativity that engulfed who I was and who I, in a sense, thought I was. So I chose to become that. And I chose to, stay paused within that depression, stay paused on moving forward, and spent a really long time experimenting with the self-harm and the eating, and just in a sense hating myself just like everyone else hated me. And that, at being 10, 11, 12, was the years that I spent, that was the beginning of everything, as I really did truly hate myself just like I felt everyone else hated. And then I kind of obviously got out of that situation of middle school. And, my parents were a lot happier divorced, and we were able to see the toxicity within that situation and kind of have more space, have more freedom. And I kind of realized that, I don't necessarily have to hate myself, but after that hatred comes the numbness, because you're kind of in between happiness and hatred. So you just kind of feel numb. And so that was the next phase of everything, to where I was so numb, I didn't know exactly what to feel. So that continued on, the self-harm and the eating disorders. Not necessarily was I depressed, I just didn't really feel anything. And so that ignited a whole new another few years on just like, who am I? What do I want to do? The saving grace through all of that is when I was 8 years old, I started living my dream of music. I was very lucky that my neighbor, grace of fate and God and destiny, he was a vocal teacher. And he was taught by a guy named Seth Riggs, who made Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder with the vocal techniques and training. So I started vocal lessons with him when I was 8 years old. Right. And so I was balancing that dream aspect of singing while living the nightmare of what, life at the time was. And so throughout that numbness, I still had singing, I still had writing, I still had everything I, could communicate on paper to try to figure out what I was actually feeling. And it kind of developed into realizing that this is what I wanted to do, and that I wasn't going to waste, my experiences with just myself. I have developed a lot of scars, physical scars over the years from self-harm, but it's the number one thing that I love on my body. They are the most beautiful thing. They have shown me the battles I've lost, but the overall war that I won. And it's a big part of my brand. It's a big part of when I decided to go into singing, that, I wasn't going to be ashamed of it. And in the end, if anyone judged it, it was more on them than it was on me.
Yeah, of course.
And I kind of started getting into that mindset on like, okay, if this is what I want to do, I got to be really mentally strong to do it. And so I kept doing it and doing and doing it through the trials and errors. My traumas, including the self-harm and the eating disorder, were addiction by then. It was habit. I've been doing it for, 4 or 5 years. It was exactly whether I was happy, heartbroken, sad, mad, angry. I always just relied on that to make me feel better, because in the past, that's what the only thing other than singing that really did. I just chose to do that more. And so that was what I really, in the end, had to just overcome, is that, my life started getting a lot better. I started, really realizing who I was, what I wanted to do, separating toxicity and negativity from positive and empowerment, and was just trying to find that balance. And I think that's what led on to my adult years, was trying to find balance and finding, where it was acceptable to have both in an aspect, but to make sure that I was in the middle and allowed everything to kind of flow through. And so developing that around 18 and 19 years old kind of set me in my 20s to really just understand everything and everyone, and knowing that, my mindset's a lot different than what it was when I was growing up. But when I talk to schools, when I see people my age going through that, I remember it like the back of my hand. And so finding that empathy is really, really easy for me, because I, was told for 7 years to get over things, and that I was going to not make it, and this and that. And in the end, that's not the reality. The reality was what I actually experienced, but was able to overcome. So, yeah.
It's incredible, and I link back to your thoughts of what you said about your scars, and I find that fascinating, the way that you sort of talked about the what they are, and you've been through experiences, but you've won the war. The battles have been there, and you've won that war, and thinking about where you are, and when people knock you down or say that you can't do it, it's almost like you have to battle through those and then show them the difference, don't you? And you've done so well, and I'm really proud of you for where you've come on your journey. And I just I listen to you talking, and I see so many parallels in some of the stuff in my world, of course, with the experiences that we've been through with my daughter. And I just think, it's incredible to see your positivity now, and the way that you present yourself. And I, so like I say, I'm really proud of you for your journey, and you winning that war, and really importantly, getting through those challenges. But in terms of sort of support, because I'm sort of the big thought of, people coach us and help us through that. So one of those, I guess, would have been through that singing outlet that you had, this sort of alternative version of reality in some ways. Was that something that you sort of recognized at that point? Was that a big support for you?
Yeah, that was a big support for me. I think at the time, it's something that I think pushes my drive to make sure that I am there for other people, is because I truly had to deal with a lot of stuff alone. When I was younger, there wasn't a ton of people talking about it. And so I had to make my own hero. And my hero was myself in 10 years.
Right. Okay.
And I worked every single day to become that person.
Right.
So I could, and then obviously, when I was 11, my hero was me at 21. And then at 21, I was just like, let's continue the cycle. Let's do another 10 years and just keep it going.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for the support system I have now. But at the time, I really just had to go within and figure out, with myself, what I was doing. And, of course, I had a lot of people who cared, but a lot of people I didn't know fully how to communicate with, because in the end, I didn't know how to communicate with myself. And so, empty words were just being spoken to each other because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't understand what I was going through. And there was no way I was going to be able to communicate that with anyone until I found to communicate with myself. And I think that's where singing really helped me. Writing lyrics and singing and, writing songs that were really a cry for help was the thing that kind of ignited me to listen back to myself and be like, this is what I'm really trying to say. Like, why isn't anyone listening? And then it made me realize that, not everyone, I find myself being able to be really empathetic and able to feel a lot of energies and senses, but not everyone, no one's a mind reader in the end. Like, you really do have to figure out a way to communicate. And in my adult years, I've gotten a lot better at it, but it wasn't until I found someone who told me exactly what I tell others. Yeah, I feel like that is such a healthy mindset, to always have someone who tells you exactly what you tell others, and knew how to get to me and pretty much told me that, that you don't get a medal for doing all of this alone. There is no, prize at the end, like that you don't have to do everything. Yeah, exactly.
Like all the medals behind me, they're not for me on my own, by the way, are they?
In a sense, kind of.
Yeah.
But it was that thing of like, I had to go through, that everyone else has to go through, is knowing that you can trust someone and knowing that you're not alone. Because I think for so long, everything in the physical world and society really put me in the place of loneliness. And I just was able to turn that loneliness into power for myself. But then, obviously now it makes me teary-eyed every time, I see support and I see someone understand and take extra 10 seconds to listen and to be patient when someone is angry. It really makes me feel fulfilled, and also heals me in a sense to see it with other people and know that, they're going to have someone for them, just like I have people for me now. But it's that passion too that has gotten me to be able to do what I do now.
Incredible. And I just want to go to a point that you just shared there around this, when you were starting out in music, you were writing music, you were sharing your, you were vocalizing your thoughts and your feelings, right? Did anybody notice? Did anybody hear it? Did you play it to anybody, or did you keep it as a private thing for yourself that you just had it out there? How did that go?
I think, until I got into the actual music industry,
Sure.
No one really did hear it. I think people would listen to it when I sang live, but I grew up in a very small town to where everyone kind of already knew everything about me, and they already saw how I made it through everything. And when I was 17, the year I got into recovery was the fully, I was back and forth for obviously a year, as anyone is when they go into recovery. They always, fall forward, and then they realize that they really want to do it. The year that I fully went into recovery, my mom passed away.
Right.
And so it was a tricky time to really have people already knew that it was hard. People already knew that things were going on. I think that was the biggest time for me to prove that I was okay. And so for a really long time, I think unfortunately, but also beneficial, my coping mechanism was work. And I always saw it as, I was just going to be successful to be able to share my story. And I think for such a long time, going into 18, 19, I put a lot of stuff and emotions on hold to then be able to tell it one day. But then when I turned about 19, 20, I realized that those scars that I thought on the emotions of everything I went to were still wounds. And I'm a very big person on understanding what is a scar that is closed up, healed, something I'm more than open to talk about that can never really reopen, to a wound that is too early to still talk about, that can get infected, can get worse, can never heal. And in the end, just hurts you in the end. And I think when I was 18, 19, those songs are really hard to sing at the time because it was something I still wasn't fully
reopening.
healed from.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it was a balance game, but then obviously I saw how they helped other people. And that in the end really healed me as well, to see that,
Amazing.
After I sang this, people would come up to me and tell me how it's helped them, remembered how they did it. And then they would share, how they got through. And it inspired me to take what they said into my own life and try to incorporate it within myself. And it was just that learning experience and knowing that one person's way is not going to be everyone's way.
No.
But listening, you can, like I said, develop and figure out how it can relate to your life, and then kind of switch it around to your own little style and start going from there. So
wow. Yeah, I'm fascinated listening to you. I just find you so easy to listen to, and you obviously so aware of all of the impact of everything that's going on for you. So let's fast forward to sort of now, these years, and of course there's been a small pandemic thing going on over the last couple of years as well, which is we need to mention, I guess. But how has it been for you in this, this journey from this part? Because obviously there's been restrictions, there's been challenges. So can you define a bit more around that area for me?
I think COVID-19 made me fully realize an entire new perspective that I've always been aware of, but I've never fully seen. I feel like everyone listens with their eyes. And that's something I really learned in the music industry, but how I really incorporated into my own life through COVID-19. I had a solid month when we went into lockdown here in the United States. I lived alone at the time. And so that entire time of isolation, I was alone, to where I realized whose energies were who, what I personally was truly thinking, and understanding how privileged and how lucky I truly am to be in the life that I am. And knowing everything I went through when I was younger, it put me a little bit calmer in the chaos, because I experienced a lot of really hard things, and that I was very sad and I grieved for the world, for humanity, and for everyone we lost. But I knew for myself that personally, this wasn't I've been through hard things that seemed and I could recognize as hard as this, in a sense, for my own personal life. Yeah. And it made me really understand that I was very lucky to be able to feel that, because I saw the pain, I saw the grief in everyone that affected me, in a sense, because I recognized those feelings. But I recognized those feelings not from COVID, but from what I went through in the past.
Yeah.
And so it made me understand a lot, and it made me come down to myself to know that, I'm really lucky to, have Amazon, to have a house, to have, a kind of freelance job and a passion to just keep going and to not let this stop me. And kind of growing up, I always knew there's no such thing as limits. As long as you're safe and everything, I figured out a way to get over to London. I figured out a way to get to Vietnam. And I kind of was able to break through those things and really get to a point where my life is a privilege, and I have a responsibility now to keep doing what I'm doing, because all I want to do is to help people, and to help people what became my responsibility, it felt like, during COVID. And so I kept going and going and going. And I had that mindset to just stay mindful, stay, thankful, stay extremely kind. And especially I worked a lot with Vietnam at that time, seeing how they were impacted, and seeing, obviously, my problems were not their problems. They've never thought about any of the problems I've had. But in fairness, I never thought about the problems they had.
Yeah.
And so I really focused on, just understanding every single world, every single person. And I always say COVID-19 is the one trauma every single person in this world experienced together.
Yep.
We all just experience the emotions in different ways. But it's something that will always connect every single person in this world. And I saw that, in a sense, a very interesting thing to, be able and start and see, okay, moving forward, what is a new way to help people? Because I saw mental health in a completely different way because of it.
Yeah.
And it was a big learning experience for me. And I, saw people on both sides of COVID, in a sense of people doing really well, people doing not really well.
Yeah.
And it kind of just made me an observer to it all and try to help in any single way when it pertained to mental health.
Amazing. And you're right, it was, people, it was a balance, wasn't it? Some people were struggling, some people were thriving, and it's this, we have to recognize it, and having that position of being an observer, you can see both. If you enable yourself, you can see both, can't you? I think it's fascinating. I know you raise money to feed people in Vietnam as well, and to give back to the communities there, and I think that's just incredible as well. So well done for doing that. We are coming towards the end of this. I can't believe it. This is like 30 minutes. It's just like sizzled away from front of us. So it's just gone. I'm going to ask you in a moment just to give final thoughts. But what I would like to know as well is your future. You're going to have a bright star. I'm sure of that. Absolutely. And it will rise and it will be amazing. But, and any final thoughts really. So just the last few minutes, I'm just going to throw back to you, Amy, to share your thoughts.
Well, I appreciate. We'll have to have a round 2.
Yeah, I reckon. I reckon so.
I mean, I'm so lucky and honored. I just did a whole reel about the other day how I started as a singer.
Okay.
Felt contained in a 3-minute song. I wanted to talk more and more and more, and I just wasn't allowed to. So I did this public speaking, and that was amazing. And then because of COVID, I realized that I was going to have to find another way to get and help people, to balance the public speaking aspect of it. And I developed, and it, was just launching a new mindset and life coaching business that is very much in alignment when it comes to my public speaking. And that is, that just launched, and it's just kind of going. And then I do a bunch of work with Vietnam as well. I am an ambassador to a foundation there, and I've been helping bringing mental health into Vietnam, and they have a completely different idea of it. And so kind of being that US Vietnamese person to kind of come in and help in that aspect. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of stuff I'm juggling, but it's just a privilege and an honor to do every single thing. And I just love connecting with people, and I've loved connecting with you, and it's just been so much fun.
Oh no, it has been, and it really, and genuinely it has. It's so nice to hear a different perspective again, another episode with a totally new and unique story and unique perspective to it as well. And I'm sure the singing becomes a big part of the future for you as well, right? And the music.
I hope. I've been a little too busy to focus on music, but it's something that started, and I give my hats off every chance I can get. And it's something I do hope in the future will circle back around. And I feel very thankful that my creativity can go beyond music into everything else I'm doing. So it's still there.
I saw a video of you doing a speech in a school, and you were running up and down, and it was quite interesting, right? Yeah,
it's it fulfills me a lot more than actually singing on stage. Right. The crowd interaction is amazing, and they're so cute. I just am so happy to be there.
Amazing. Yeah, there you go. Well, the world is huge, and there's so many opportunities and so many different things, and of course you have a lot of skills and talents, so that's use them to do whatever your mission of life will be.
Thank you.
We are right at the end, and it really pains me to sort of close down the conversation now, but I just want to say a huge thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for you know, going straight out at the beginning with the reality of what you've been through. And you know, I love the fact that you can talk about it. I don't love the fact that you've been through it, but I love the fact that you can talk about it
Thank you.
so well. And so, you know, your words are very wise, and your perspective is very important for everybody out there. If anybody is listening and you are struggling, or you need any more support, you know, you can always reach out to me, or I'm sure Amy wouldn't mind if anybody wanted to ask any questions or get in touch. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My DMs, my LinkedIn, my everything is very open to know that, you know, there are people who understand.
Absolutely. And we both understand. And I think that's
Yes.
clear. I hope that's clear to everybody out there. These conversations exist exactly for that purpose, to know you are not alone. I do hate to think of that young Amy that was there struggling in silence, trying to find their pathway through the darkness and the difficult moments. And everybody needs to understand that we don't have to be that way. We can find some help and support. Please know that, for all those people that are listening to this. And if you need extra help, there are organizations out there that exist today to help support conversations too. And please do know or recognize there are local organizations for you. I won't give them all out because we're in 2 different continents, and it would take me a little while, but you know, there are people out there. I'll drop all of Amy's contact details, or you know, where you can find her and get in touch with her, into the post as well that goes with this. But Amy, thank you so much once again. I really do genuinely appreciate it. I wish you all the very best. Enjoy, and take some time out as well, because I know that's coming up for you and your partner as well soon.
Yes. Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. No worries.